episode of Soft Faith. I think we're almost halfway through Lent, possibly. I kind of lost track, I'll be honest, but we're knee deep into Lent, and I think the topic for today is a perfect time to do it because I think we can reflect on how our Lent has been. And with that being said, our topic is going to be building new habits. And so, what I mean by perfect time is that by now you should start realizing that you have created new habits for yourself, whether it be giving up Lent on Fridays, so you've adjusted your diet changes. On Fridays, you don't eat meat, or um, giving up swearing, and you've noticed that you've been swearing a lot less than you used to. You know what I mean? So, you're starting to notice by now, or should notice by now, that a lot of the stuff that you've given up, you're kind of getting used to not having. You know what I'm saying? So, what I'm trying to get at is that Lent, with building new habits, Lent is literally about letting things die so something new can grow instead of it. And I think that's the core lesson of today. And with habits, I kind of have three core ideas that I want to go over. And that is being aware of a bad habit, removing a bad habit, and replacing the bad habit. So today's episode is probably going to be a little shorter, but that's okay. As long as I get to the point of the context of the video, that's all that matters. So, awareness of a bad habit can is the most I feel like is the most important part to changing your habits. And I think when you're aware that something is, or when you're aware that a habit is bad, I think it's already like off to a good start, that you're gonna make good habits and you're gonna change that bad habit for good. And if you feel like there is, like, you're not sure what your bad habits are, that's okay. Because I've ran into instances where I was like, I don't know if this is a bad habit or not. But when I'm in doubt of a habit being bad or not, I always pray to God for um kind of guidance and awareness of what my habits are bad. And you kind of like start to realize mentally that what you're doing isn't beneficial to you. That's another thing. If something that you do, when you like kind of do a self reflection, when you think of a habit, think to yourself, is it benefiting me or the people around me, or is it doing more harm? You know what I'm saying? So that's like kind of how I would go about being aware of a bad habit. And like I said, always pray for a self reflection. Have God, like, I guess, well, what I'm trying to say is pray for like a kind of a, whoa. Okay, let me start that over. Pray that God searches your heart and that you understand that whatever the habit is isn't good, isn't beneficial, is hurting other people. So that was the point I was trying to make, but my words were not coming out, but that's okay. That's okay. So, say we are aware of a bad habit. Okay, how do I go about removing it? And I think this is something that you need to be patient with. And that's what I've been trying to teach myself that over this Lent, is that I need to be patient with the things that I've been giving up and with the habits I've been trying to create. It doesn't happen in the snap of a finger, but rather you just have to give it time. You can't just say like, okay, I need to stop doing this, but rather I need to work on removing this out of my life. And I think with Lent, is a great time to uh kind of like put those habits aside that you feel like aren't as bad, but probably you could get rid of, like something like snacking, for instance. You feel like that's a very normal thing to do, but if you give up snacking, you can see how much of the benefits you get from it without noticing. So like what this Lent is removing that bad habit to not only just get you to notice that this is bad and you don't need this in your life, but also what can you replace that with? And that can transition great into how do you replace a bad habit? Like, what can you do instead? And I know I've talked about this previously in one of my episodes with discipline and productivity, but like I said, I want to go over it again this Lent because this is the time for you to this is a time for you to set aside your bad habits and see the world and what your life is like without those habits, even if it's something small. And that's a big thing to note. It doesn't have to be something huge. It could literally be something like snacking. Um, like it might not seem like the end of the world, but you'll see some sort of change. Now, replacement of a bad habit is something you may need to set like maybe a day aside or just some sort of time aside because you're going to need to reflect on what exactly those habits are that you want to get rid of. Once you recognize the habits and you want to remove them, you want to also not only just remove them, but like I said, you want to replace them with something that's more beneficial. Because habits can be good or bad, but you can't get rid of a habit itself. You can learn to convert a bad habit to a good habit. And that's the point I want to make with replacing a habit. And like I said, those are just some things that you would have to work on your own. And like you would have to reflect on what habits could basically move you towards God instead of away. Or what habits are pushing you away from your family or those around you or is hurting you. You know, you want to look at the positives and the negatives. But I would say I know I've gone over a couple examples, but instead of like I'll give you some examples. Instead of snacking, you can learn to concise all of your food to a meal. Have your 3 meals a day instead of having one meal and then various snacks throughout the day. That's a habit you could change. Um, Another regular habit is, I guess, like scrolling on your phone. Instead of scrolling on TikTok and Instagram and whatever else bad social media, scroll on maybe like, I don't know. Okay, right now I'm using an app that, okay, this is gonna sound really nerdy, but bear with me here. It's for the point of the example. But I'm right now currently using an app that like you kind of scroll through little informative articles and it's like, oh, like it's kind of like these mini lessons throughout the day about like whatever topic you choose. So like right now I'm doing like logic and I did a little bit of criminology, but it's like it'll give you like, oh, um like 101s of like criminology or whatnot. But like you know what I'm saying? So like you can scroll through something that's more beneficial to like your learning and rather than like corrupt social media that's like yuck and ugh, especially nowadays and whatnot. But you know what I'm saying? You could take, scrolling and being on your phone is a regular habit. But how you go about with that habit is what's really important. So I think that covers all of my points for those three, I guess, sections, if you will. I also noted, I know I said it already, but I think it's really important because I feel like this is a point that a lot of people miss is that start small with your replacement of your habits. Do not go crazy feral on all of the habits in your whole life that you want to replace in a single day. Don't do it because it will burn you out, one, and two, you will lose the whole idea of replacing habits. And in reality, you can't flip your life around 180 in a single night. I know there'll be moments where it's like, oh, I want to be a whole completely different person and I'm going to do this, 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 this. I love your enthusiasm, but let's take it down a bit because, like I said, you're gonna, like, I don't even want to say you get burnt out, but like, you're either gonna get really bored or you're gonna get really overwhelmed and stressed out because you have so much to change about yourself, which you don't trust. It's only a couple things here and there. But point is, start small do maybe like, for instance, this is why we have Lent. You can give up one thing and work on it through the whole Lent, and then hopefully when Easter comes around and Lent is over, you're gonna feel like, well, maybe I didn't really need that in the first place. Maybe I didn't need to be swearing all the time, or maybe I didn't need to be snacking all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about how much you change. It's not about the quantity of the habits that you change. It's more about changing the habits themselves. The whole idea is to literally just start changing yourself little by little. Start getting rid of the bad stuff in your life. Because then you'll start seeing clarity and you'll start seeing, oh my goodness, life isn't so bad. You know what I mean? So that's, I think, the point that I want to get at. And just as like a little closing reflection, who is God inviting you to become this time? And in what ways can you become a better person based off of your habits? And what habits can you get rid of? Because if you think about it, habits are just the path to becoming that kind of person. So I'm gonna close it off with that. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your week. If it is spring break for you, I hope you are having fun because oof, I felt like I needed that spring break. It's my spring break this week, and oh, I'm gonna have so much fun. No more chem. Anyways, you guys have a lovely rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.